Crazy Rich Asians, last summer's blockbuster movie, is a feast for the eyes, even if the plot isn't exactly original.
Welcome to Plain English, the podcast that goes at the right speed for English language learners. Listen now and read the transcript online at plainenglish.com. Now, here's Jeff, your host for today's episode.
Welcome back to Plain English. I'm Jeff. JR is the producer, and it's time for another movie review. I hope you like these. We talked about Roma back in episode 120 and A Star is Born back in episode 104. So if you like movies, check out those episodes. The rules are the same today as they were back then. If you are afraid of any type of spoilers, then maybe you should see the movie before listening to this episode. But I'm not going to spoil too much for you here. Today is episode 130, and that means you can read along with us at plainenglish.com/130. Some of you find that it's enough to listen, but others of you like to read the transcript at the same time so you can recognize all the words. The great thing, if you do that, is that our transcripts have this really unique feature. About 100 words and phrases are highlighted in red in every transcript. And if you hover your mouse over those words, or if you tap on them on your phone, you will instantly see the translation from English into whatever language you want, as long as that language is Portuguese, Spanish, Japanese, French, Italian, or Chinese. And that's all for you at plainenglish.com/130. We have a great community of friends here at Plain English, and there are a few ways for you to be in touch with us. First, by email, you can join at plainenglish.com/mail, M-A-I-L. If you do that, you'll get an email every time a new episode comes out. And that email will include a summary of the episode, links to listen, obviously, links to English articles that I used to prepare the main content of the program, and one additional vocabulary word or English phrase that I used during the show. And there is no other place. A listener asked me one time, but there is no other place to get these additional words. So if you want to learn even more from each episode, join us at plainenglish.com/mail, M-A-I-L. The other way to be in touch is through WhatsApp. I will send the occasional informal message out to some friends of the show on WhatsApp. And if you want to be in that group, it's not a group chat, but just the list of people I send messages to. Just send me a message and, this is important, add me to your contacts. The number is +1 312 967 8757. You don't have to be crazy or Asian to enjoy Crazy Rich Asians. This summer's blockbuster movie, based on the book by Kevin Kwan, was a classic Hollywood romantic comedy with an Eastern flavor. Let's see if you recognize any of these plot elements. Two people want to get together but they are from different cultures. One is rich, the other not so much. The family of one doesn't accept the other. There's a conflict or a struggle. The girl gives up. The guy reflects on it deeply and decides to go after her. There is a final dramatic proposal to redeem the couple's love. She says yes. They kiss and everyone applauds. Basically, you've seen it 100 times. In this variety, Nick, the son of a rich real estate family in Singapore, falls in love with a Chinese-American girl from Queens, New York, the daughter of an immigrant single mother. Nick and his girlfriend live in New York, but Nick brings her to Singapore for his brother's wedding and to meet his family. The only catch is that he hasn't told Rachel, his girlfriend of a year, that his family is crazy rich. When she gets to Singapore, she finds Nick's mother and grandmother don't accept her. In one particularly biting scene, Nick's mother coolly tells Rachel that being married to her son requires hard work and sacrifice, and that she, Rachel, will never measure up. Intense conflict ensues, but the typical Hollywood plotline plays out. But keep listening, because Crazy Rich Asians has more to it than this stock Hollywood plotline. The reason to watch this movie is not really the plot. It's everything else besides the plot. First of all, the cast. It's the first all-Asian, or primarily Asian, cast since The Joy Luck Club, which came out 26 years ago. Even if you don't love romantic comedies, you'd enjoy this movie just for the scenery. Singapore appears at once high energy and tranquil as the main characters flit between energetic street markets and peaceful gardens, between thumping parties and romantic boat rides. The final scene takes place on the rooftop of the signature building in Singapore's skyline, the Marina Bay Sands Hotel. It consists of 3 separate 55-story towers connected at the top by a huge platform that extends across all 3 towers and even extends another 65 feet beyond the roof of the main structure. This rooftop is a huge party space, including an enormous infinity pool, and that's where the final party takes place, with synchronized swimmers providing the entertainment. Then there's the Newton Food Center, where Nick first takes Rachel to meet his friends before she meets the family. The food court is an outdoor area with 83 different food stalls, all arranged in a horseshoe pattern. The scene features a dizzying array of street dishes: chili fried crab, satay, and dumplings. Best satay in the city, Nick brags, and I don't doubt it. I also loved the scene at a place called the Gardens by the Bay, where Nick's brother Colin and his wife Araminto have their big wedding. The gardens have these huge man-made sculptures made to look like trees, and they're covered in smaller actual plants, and they're lit up in colorful lights at night. They also have temperature-controlled domes with thousands of plants and trees from around the world. A pivotal final scene takes place in a mahjong game hall. Mahjong is a complicated and fast-paced game played with 4 players and tiles on a table. The rules are different in different parts of the world. Now, of course, there are also the luxurious houses and hotels, and those need no explanation. The music is fantastic, too. As the bride starts to walk down the aisle, which is a shallow river of water sprinkled with petals, a guitarist is playing my favorite Elvis song, which is called Can't Help Falling in Love. Kina Grannis, the guitarist, sang the lyrics in English. The classic Motown song Money, That's What I Want, which was most famously covered by the Beatles in 1963. That song appears twice, once in English and once in Chinese. We also hear Madonna's famous song, Material Girl, sung in Chinese. You might also recognize the song Yellow by Coldplay, performed by Catherine Ho. I do have a bit of criticism for this movie, though. I personally thought there was too much going on. Too many scenes, too many people, too many conflicts to really develop the conflict beyond the superficial rich guy, poor girl dynamic. There is only one really deep emotional theme in the whole movie, and that is, unfortunately, a subplot. Astrid, Nick's sympathetic sister, is married to a workaholic whom she discovers is having an affair. The conflict between them is about the husband's sense of self-worth in a family of such extravagant riches. That is the deepest part of the plot and, to me, contains the most powerful scene in the whole film, the scene where Astrid leaves the apartment they both lived in. That scene could have been the basis of a whole movie. I watched it thinking, if only the rest of this movie could have had this depth, then it would have been a much more powerful film. But let's not judge Crazy Rich Asians for not being something that it wasn't trying to be. It was a fairly classic Hollywood romantic comedy shot on the brilliant backdrop of a vibrant city with an all-Asian, all-star cast. The boy and the girl get together in the end, and that's not a spoiler, since that happens in every Hollywood movie. The plot is almost a device for us to enjoy the cast, the music, and the scenery. Boy, Kina Grannis was excellent singing Can't Help Falling in Love. She has another version of it, too, on an album called The Living Room Sessions. That version, if anything, is even better than the one in the movie. I was listening to that album this afternoon and realized I had already heard her version of the song Riptide. I just hadn't known it was her. Kina Grannis. Check her out. She sounds amazing. JR loved the movie, by the way. He says that this movie serves to remind us that where we come from has nothing to do with the place where we want to be, that we live in a world full of options and we can make the best life for ourselves. And if you are meant to be with someone, JR says, you can overcome any obstacle. He also said that he cried 3 times in the movie. So that's another positive. If you can't afford a crying therapist from Japan, like we talked about in episode 115, then just stream Crazy Rich Asians. I'd like to mention a few listeners today. I heard from a few people who loved the episode about Toronto. That was number 124. You know, I had a feeling that this would have been a popular one. Toronto, as I told you in the episode, is a very international city. And this, I don't need to tell you, is a very international podcast. So I wasn't surprised one bit that many of you had fond memories of Toronto. AC from Turkey went to Toronto to study English, and that episode brought back some great memories for her. Same goes for Igor. That was the first place he ever went outside of Brazil. So he remembers Tim Hortons, Niagara Falls, poutine, all that stuff. I also want to say hi to Ayaz. He's Syrian and listening in Istanbul. There are a lot of tourists in Istanbul, so he's using English to communicate with them. Also, self-described geek and developer Ayman is listening from Morocco. He's studying all on his own to learn English and pass the test of English for international communication so that he can accept a job offer working in IT in Japan. One of the places I really want to go is Marrakech, Morocco. My boss at my last job, a long time ago, used to go to Morocco a lot, and she highly recommended it to me. So I'm glad we have some listeners from North Africa. The phrasal verb I'm going to share with you today is measure up. In Crazy Rich Asians, Nick's mother tells Rachel that she will never measure up. And that means Rachel will never be good enough to marry her son. There's some irony in that because, as we find out, Nick's mother herself, when she married Nick's father, well, she herself wasn't considered good enough to marry into the family. She herself spent her life trying to measure up to the family's expectations. She spent her life trying to be good enough to be worthy of being in the family, to measure up. This is a very powerful word, and it often goes to our sense of self-worth. If you say someone doesn't measure up to a challenge or to a set of expectations, you're saying that person isn't good enough. I was rooting for the Los Angeles Rams in the Super Bowl this year, but it was clear that the young quarterback Jared Goff and the LA Rams just could not measure up to the experience and relentlessness of Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. The Rams were not as good as the Patriots, and they lost a snoozer of a game 13-3. Some of you might be listening to this program on a new Google Pixel 3. These new versions of Google's smartphone are said to be the best yet. According to the reviews, these measure up well to the very best smartphones on the market. They measure up well to the best phones on the market. That means they are just as good as, or almost as good as, the very best out there. All right, that's about it for today. If you haven't checked out Mosa Lingua yet, make sure to do that at plainenglish.com/learn, LEARN. And to get a free email summary of every Plain English episode with bonus vocabulary words and links to English articles, then please subscribe to our mailing list at plainenglish.com/mail. I don't want anyone to miss out on all the great content included for free by email, plainenglish.com/mail. One more thing. You're probably sick of me talking about this, I'm sure. Kina Grannis has a great cover of the Paul Simon song, Graceland. Okay, that's enough for now. See you Thursday.